Dungeons and Dragons players of Reddit, what's the most awesome or evil thing you've ever accomplished? Part 2. I told the dungeon master about this ahead of time, but my character was actually a devil possessing a half-elf. I went through the majority of the campaign pretending to be a mortal. The rest of the party eventually began questioning why I could speak internal, could help them navigate through hell, and why I never disclosed my patron as a warlock. The patron was myself. Even though I was lawful evil, I never betrayed or harmed my party. I saw them as meat shield assets that could ensure I enjoyed a long sinful, blasphemous vacation on the material plane, indulging in every type of vice and committing every religious taboo under the sun. All is flesh. The backstory was there was a half-elf named Draylen who was born into a very prestigious wizarding family. However, despite years of study, he could barely cast the most elementary of spells. One day while studying, he found documents on how one of his grandfathers had captured and imprisoned a devil inside a ring and hid it away in their mansion. He snuck into this secret chamber and found the hidden ring. He told the devil that he would free him if the devil would make him a great and powerful mage. The devil agrees and instructs him to wear the ring. The moment the ring slips on his finger, the devil fully possesses Draylen. Later, when one of the characters in the party confronts me because it is revealed who and what I am, the devil, who only refers to himself as Draylen, responds, "I promised to make him a powerful mage and I have done so." He knew the price, but not what it would cost him. The first major campaign I played in was the one where Shyamut was gonna rise up. I played an incredibly awkward Kenku necromancer, rogue, level 2 rogue and level 18 wizard, named Scraps. Scraps started off the campaign wanting 3 things. To get the girl he has loved all his life, the respect of his mentor, and wings. He got all 3 and so much more. He only had to die twice, and endure 50 years of torture in one of the hells. Even though he got all of these things, his story doesn't end happily. You see, his mentor was the father of the girl he loved, and was also a powerful necromancer. When his mentor died, he was left the secret of how to become a lich out of a sense of love and duty, along with tens of thousands of years worth of notes from his mentor, along with a bunch of other amazing things. He had been tasked with protecting his love and her family until they passed. The thing is, Kenku live much shorter lives than gnomes, so he had to become a lich to protect them for their lives. After his wife died, he was never the same. He never stopped grieving her, but lived on to protect his home, his city, and every generation of his family. I could talk about this guy for hours. I spent a year and a half pouring my entire being into Scraps, and he had all of his dreams come true. I cried when everything ended. My friends and I played a campaign that lasted for 3 years. We had a really good dungeon master and for the most part lots of great player characters. It could be made into a movie. I was playing as a human paladin named Ramian. I was one of the few played who managed to keep my character the whole campaign, so he ended up being level 20 by the last session. Our enemies we were fighting were pretty much the worst of the worst. They were an evil covenant called the Chasmites, so they worshipped a giant hole they called the Chasm of Never Been. An evil god had told them that things thrown into the pit no longer existed, nor had they ever existed. So they kidnapped people they didn't like and threw them in. Doing so made whatever or whoever their victims were erased from history. Not even the Covenant remember them. The more they deleted from history, the more voids they created in time, and the more the planes plunged into chaos. We ended up throwing the entire Covenant into the chasm after a long, 3-session, 16 hours battle with them. Doing so altered reality to a supercritical state which weakened the god who created the chasm. He materialized to confront us, and after defeating most of the player characters in our party, I managed to bull rush him and tackle him into the pit. Because I successfully grappled him, he went down the chasm under me, which blinked him from existence and thus blinked the chasm from existence, as well as he had never made the chasm in the first place. Our player characters awoke in total confusion. It wasn't necessarily evil, but we incinerated the mayor of a town, then convinced the rest of his family that I was the mayor and that there was a conspiracy against our family and that we needed to leave. Also, the party could get our friends out of prison and allow a rival family to seize power. Edit. To clarify, this was all quick thinking. None of it was planned. The mayor was being unreasonable and was abusing his power. Our cleric just kind of snapped and sacred flamed him in his seat. The servants and guards were coming to see what the noise was, so my tiefling Doomstalker Ranger cast Disguise Self to look like the mayor. Then a few lucky rolls and some over-the-top role-playing allowed us to convince the family of a conspiracy that had existed for literally 2 seconds before it all went down. The big bad was looking rough, but we were worse. Half the party had booked it, and the big bad put me, the paladin, back down every time the healer brought me up. The healer uses his last spell to put me on my feet, one final time. The big bad takes 3 swings at me. The first misses. The second puts me in the single digits. The third misses. I get one more attack before he kills us both, and we all know it. Best crit of my career. We had just played a one-shot that consisted of 2 groups run by 2 dungeon masters because the group was too big. The dungeon masters ran a group each and had written the campaign together, and they converged in the end. They worked out perfect timing for running the session and moving us along at the right times. Right at the end, about 3 hours in, we found the group of cult people trying to bring a demon into this world. The floor is cracking and fire is rising up from hell. We are about to have a huge battle. Me, a bard, decided to cast minor illusion or prestidigitation or something into the hole. I said I wanted to mimic a demon-like voice to tell the cultists to jump into the hole to be one with the demon. The dungeon master told me to roll a performance in deception. Easy peasy, I think. As a bard I have like +7 on charisma. Rolled a double nat 20 and watched the color drain from the poor guy's face as he made the cult leader jump into a fiery hole to his death without a fight. Oh man, the list is in legion. I've been at this a while. The most recent thing would have to be a petal, dragon fire adept. For reference, a petal is a 10-inch tall fairy pixie thing that's basically a flower. Flower wings, blossom for hair. It's a tiny flower fae. It looks exactly as harmless as you'd imagine, and their reputation in lore is just as cute. It's a non-combat encounter unless your party is full of giant jerks. You can play as one. I decided I wanted to because my previous character was an orc warlord. Like the orciest orc to ever orc. Multiclass barbarian, orc paragon, orc warlord, war chief, legendary commander. Assemble the motherfucking horde. So this tiny little flower thing is pretty much the opposite of that in all ways. It comes with massive racial bonuses to charisma, so I'm trying to decide what class to pair with this thing. I don't wanna do sorcerer cause I've got one already. At first I thought druid, my animal companion, could be a giant bee that I ride into combat, grab a lance and some mounted combat feats and let the red wall jokes flow. But a little fairy thing that small really doesn't do melee combat. So I kept looking. Found the dragon fire adept and dragon magic. That's fun. It's like a breath weapon warlock. Its whole deal is breath weapons. Cool, I'm not stuck in melee that way, and a 10-inch tall fairy spewing elemental fury across the battlefield is just hilarious. I've got a plan. It gets worse. Dragon fire adepts get a special ability at first level. You count as a dragon for any feats that require that as a prerequisite. Cue me diving for the feats that make your breath weapon do strange things. Now I get gas clouds, walls, party buffs, all kinds of hilarious shit. Oh wait. Awaken frightful presence. So naturally big enough dragons get the whole fear aura thing. Big dragon, you better be scared. Well, if you are a smaller dragon and want that fear aura now instead of later, you can't take a feat to turn it on. You've gotta be a dragon to take the feat. Well, thanks to Dragon Fire Adept I count as a dragon for feats. So now, I'm a 10-inch tall, brightly colored flower fairy who flies around spewing elemental fury across the battlefield, and when I fly overhead it inspires terror in my enemies. Like Maker will save. Fair. My dungeon master actually spit out a little bit of his drink when I sprang the idea on him. This is gonna be hilarious. The only thing left to figure out is personality. I can't decide if I should stick with the childlike innocence thing they do racially, or make it an abrasive jerk to really drive home the ridiculousness. Back off, yeah, miserable gobshite. Fire breath coming from a tiny flower man is pretty funny. On the other hand, scolding the goblin warband for being naughty before melting them with a cloud of acid is also really funny. My brother's story, me as a first-time dungeon master. The party had fought and killed an owlbear earlier in the night, and my brother's bonkers dwarf fighter decided that he was going to cut off its arm and use it as an improvised club. Now, though, they were infiltrating a castle that was absolutely crawling with skeletons. They were crossing a rope bridge when down below in a courtyard they spy a skeletal horse. My brother decides that now is his time. He tells me he wants to jump from the bridge and smash the thing with his owlbear arm. Awesome, I think. I tell him to roll acrobatics. He fails and just falls straight off the bridge, but it didn't fail too bad, so I'll let him roll to throw the arm. Nat 20. He rolls a ton of damage, killing the thing in one go. So, I laugh and narrate how as he drops like a bird learning to fly, the arm tumbles end over end, hooks behind the skeleton horse's skull and crashes through the whole thing like a bowling ball, scattering bones everywhere. In a game I'm dungeon mastering, my older brother is playing a fighter named Magumo that managed to get his hands on a vorpal sword scythe, and then managed to accidentally get stuck with a cursed dagger inhabited by a female spirit that would constantly promise him power if he would just feed the spirit blood. She would keep interrupting him trying to use his scythe since the poor guy couldn't make a wisdom save. Eventually he decided he was tempted enough by her offers, plus the taste of help she was offering, that he told me he wanted to find a bar in a bad part of town. He makes his way there and flashes some cash, then pretends to go into the alley to pee. Two guys follow him. Just as they come up to him to go through the usual give us all your money spiel, he whips around and stabs the one over and over with the dagger. These dudes were not high CR, so the guy went down hard. The dagger sucks in every drop of blood from the dude, shriveling him up like a mugger raisin. As the second mugger understandably ran away screaming, my brother's fighter stood and clashed the dagger and scythe together. The spirit took the opportunity to enter a superior vessel and leapt across. And that was how my brother made friends with a power-hungry, bloodthirsty evil spirit through the power of straight up shanking a dude. In 3.5e plan escape game, there was a supposedly evil queen that my group needed to depose in order to get the MacGuffin. The group started arguing about whether we could trust the quest giver and were leaning toward doing a bunch of recon. The wizard and I, who were neutral instead of good, decided we didn't have time for that. He greater teleported us into the throne room. I used my planar warrior ability to open a portal to Elysium and Sparta kicked the queen through it, then we teleported back out. In case you don't know, Elysium is a good aligned plane where you typically end up living such a good life that you never want to leave. So kind of like a really nice prison. We told the quest giver the mission was accomplished, but lied and said we sent her to the abyss. We had to wait some in-game time for him to get confirmation, but we got our MacGuffin and moved on. This was my favorite point in my Dungeons and Dragons career because it's an accomplishment that could have been a whole campaign for a lower level group, but we were all level 17 and so we handled it appropriately. The game master even appreciated our speedy resolution to it.